Internet. My name is Jack Packard, the Trouble Man.
My name is Darren Mooney, and I'm complete, wholesome, and comprehensive.
My name is KC Wosu. I don't know where to go with this.
All right, well, this week we're more so doing a general Falcon Winter Soldier talk, a season-long recap. Now that you can binge it, what do we think of this 6-hour-long movie? What do we know of the future of Cap, and how does it all tie into the past of the MCU? Can you tell I'm making this up as I go along? Hello and welcome to A Marvelous Escape. And as a heads up, we have more shows coming your way. So before we talk about the entire season of Falcon Winter Soldier, about the new stuff coming, let me tell you that the three of us will be back to talk about MODOK when that comes out. Hulu's own MODOK show, which frankly looks very fun. We're gonna binge that because they're releasing the whole season at once, kind of like they should. And if you like Star Wars, and a lot of people seem to really like Star Wars, although they tweet mean things about it all the time, you can check out our new show, Escape the Galaxy, which will have three whole different people. Not us, we're Marvel. Three different
Star
people.
Wars.
Right? It's a lightsabers, more like dumb sabers. Oh, sick burn. So watch that show over here on the Escapist movie channel, where we have all of our shows. Now back to the episode talk.
That was quite a tense introduction.
A tense introduction?
Because past, future, okay.
Oh, fuck, Darren.
It's no fun if I have to explain them.
Well, that's the problem. Is you're too clever. You're too clever.
Right, you're
to
like
be funny.
3 steps ahead of everybody else.
The Baron Zemo of this podcast. You can see chess. I've got a chessboard behind me here.
It's really important to put that emphasis on the pun word, just so my dumb brain can actually try to figure it out.
Yeah. I'm reading Machiavelli in my spare time.
The once and future king. Oh. Different mutant franchise, different Marvel franchise. That one was. All right, so after rewatching some episodes of Falcon Winter Soldier, watching a little bit of the old movies, overall, I think Falcon Winter Soldier is good. I end very much how I ended our talk last week, which is like overall, I think it's all fine. I think if we are going to judge it, how do I put this? They have their feet in both kiddie pools right now, like the little bit of a movie kiddie pool and a little bit of the TV show kiddie pool. And that just means that they're doing the splits and they don't have firm footing. Oh my God, my metaphor. I'm so sorry, everyone. And so like, it's not, if we're looking at this as a very long movie, it's really poorly paced. And if we're looking at this as a TV show, it has really harsh swings up and down. That's my thesis statement.
Yeah, I can buy that. I mean, again, I was going to say, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's interesting to note, again, this was originally meant to be the first, I think, of the Marvel properties to go on streaming. And so it's interesting to contrast with WandaVision, where WandaVision starts out very definitely as a TV show with episodic adventures, and then becomes, in its final third, oh, hey, look, it's just a Marvel movie. This is much more wibbly-wobbly, kind of, in terms of pacing and structure, in that there are individual episodes there. In fact, I know we're going to talk about the inevitable Captain America 4 in a moment, but things like the fact that the writer of that is the writer of Episode 5, and I can say with certainty that's very good, because I like episode 5 quite a bit compared to the other episodes, because it feels like an episode. It's a breather episode. It's self-contained. It's the deep breath before you get to the finale. It's the kind of thing you could only do on television. I think there are other points in the show that are like that as well. I think the trip to Madripoor, for example, is another one. It's like, it is an episode that you would see in a season of TV. It's like the gang have to go undercover and have a wacky adventure that isn't necessarily related to the larger plot of the season, but, we got an extra hour to play with, and we wanted to do this, and we thought it'd be fun, and it'll let the cast bond. So why not just do it? I can understand the idea that it isn't necessarily a movie or a TV show. I think it works well in that kind of weird hybridized way that streaming does, where I think James Ponzowek at the New York Times argued that we talk about streaming and we talk about it as if it's television, but it's not. because generally people don't always watch it like television. You'll tend to binge it, you'll watch it in chunks. And the way in which like seasons are structured, seasons of streaming shows are structured, particularly say things like the earlier Netflix shows, like Daredevil or Luke Cage, where it often just feels like somebody has 8 hours or 13 hours of content and just a feckin' like mallet or a sledgehammer, and it's just like, bang, you're a cliffhanger. Bang, you're a cliffhanger. Doesn't matter that you wouldn't be an ad break on network television. You're also a cliffhanger. That's where this is ending. And there is a bit of that to it, which is very odd because for reasons that I suspect are more commercial than creative, this is released like a weekly TV show. Like, this is not released in one go to watch in one big chunk or at your leisure. It's appointment television, where appointment just happens to be midnight every Friday, or else you'll get it spoiled for you on Twitter. And I find that dissonance, between the two kind of interesting. Like, in terms of going back and watching it, Jack, did you find that it watched better when you watched it in chunks rather than as like separate, disparate episodes? Did it hold together better, or what did you make of it?
100%.
It worked better.
100% worked better because and like you said, like the difference between appointment television, which if that's the real term, that's great. If not, you coined it, which is fantastic. But like unlike appointment television, when you are binging, you get to control the pace, which means like, oh, I'm ready for another one. I'm ready for another one, or I'm ready to stop. I will pick up tomorrow. And that ability to control the pace is vital for especially a show like this that has these weird up and down moments where, yes, episode 5 is phenomenal. That's great. And watching like episode 5 right into 6 really smooths out the weirdness of 6 as far as I'm concerned, because you're still like, you have that afterglow of episode 5 where it carries you through I know we all kind of disliked parts of episode 6. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think in a sense, to me, it still feels like all of the series is kind of just an extended movie. Like I don't think that the television format or the appointment television viewing format works at all for this. It would have been better served as like a standard long, like on the long side Marvel movie, like maybe 3-ish hours, 3.5 hours at most, right? And you could have gotten everything you really needed in and told this story a lot more succinctly. In their effort to try to just put content on Disney Plus, I think that's kind of where they got, because honestly, like even at 6 episodes, it still feels like there's like downtime and bloat, right? Like they were kind of padding it because they didn't have enough story to tell. So I think, kind of the fact that this will eventually become a movie in its sequel iteration is a good thing. Like, this is kind of what the first one probably should have been, right? It would have been better served. But that being said, I don't think it suffered too much from having to be episodic, because overall it's kind of just okay. Like, it wasn't so good that I was like chomping at the bits to like, see what happened next. Like, I was fine kind of waiting until the next week came around, or forgetting about it entirely until I'm like, oh wait, today's Friday. I guess I have another episode to watch. Right?
Darren and Jack are messaging me for some reason.
Oh, that's right. There's a Marvel show. Oh yeah.
I mean, honestly, if I wasn't doing this podcast, like, I don't know if I'd even have bothered to watch it week 2. I mean, I don't watch most shows like that, to be honest.
Right.
But like, there are some, like, I was watching The Mandalorian week to week because I was really into that. I watched Game of Thrones week to week because I was scared of spoilers and stuff. But like with this, I don't think I'd have been so hard up, and I'd just waited till it was all out to go through it.
Before we move on, just one quick thing I want to say, because just getting out there. The stuff that we describe as filler in this show is the stuff that I actually really like. And again, I feel really terrible because this is the same thing with WandaVision, where like the stuff that you would cut out of this to make it like, and Casey's right, it would probably like objectively, statistically, narratively, functionally, structurally work better as like a 2.5 hour movie. But at the same time, the part of this that I love, the part of this that like really surprised me and kind of awed me and like emotionally affected me, is the stuff that I know would be the first thing that an editor would cut from it. Things like the boat montage being reduced to 3 minutes instead of like an entire episode, for example, or things like, you know, the kind of the Bucky showing up at the family barbecue and things like that, or then just taking its time with like Bucky's reconciliation, which isn't necessarily like that would be a plot line you would cut entirely because it's not really substantial or thematically, you know, essential to the narrative as being told. But I like that the show has the space to give these things room to breathe, you know? It's like when we watched WandaVision, and I was like, yeah, I actually really like the recreation of kind of 50s domesticity with these two unlikely characters because it means we actually get to spend time with them being themselves. So, I think what Casey is saying and what Jack's kind of implying is entirely fair and reasonable. But I would just gently push back on that and say that if this was a movie, I would probably ironically like it a bit less.
Well, I mean, with that being said, then I'm very curious, Darren, like what would you choose to cut then that would kind of keep all of those portions that you think, you know, are super important or that you like a lot, but would serve to kind of drop the runtime down some?
well, that's the thing. Like, if you let me do that, like I would probably make the same decision, which is you guys do, which is like make it a coherent story and kind of trim out all the stuff that I love about it. But if Kevin Feige came to me and he said, "Look, I watched Chloe Zhao's Eternals. I was blown by the fact that we shot outdoors. I'm willing to do more experimenting, Darren. I want you to edit this and just give me the best of this." And it's like, fine. Terrence Malick's version of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where they do nothing but fix the boat. That's it. All the superhero stuff, all the action scenes are gone. All the John Walker stuff is gone. It's just this weird drama about a guy whose side hustle is that he flies as a falcon and has a shield, but he primarily is trying to get the family business up and running. That's what I would do. Now, nobody would watch that. Nobody would like...
But that would, you know, like you could pitch that as like a 4-issue mini, like Falcon mini series that would sell gangbusters. It's just like, this is Falcon in his off time.
Yeah. But like that's the kind of thing. So no, I'm not, when I'm complaining, I understand why it would happen the way it is. So I actually quite like the fact that it is a 6-episode miniseries because I can guarantee you that like Captain America 4 will not feature an extended montage of boat fixing where the boat is America. You know. I'm going to put that pin down now, you know?
Well, we'll see. Here's what I would have liked done with this. Like, if I'm going to be in that like story editor moment, I would take a big chunk of the Flag Smashers and throw it right out the window. They turned out to be almost entirely useless as far as the narrative of the character arcs were concerned. Bump up U.S. Agent, turn him maybe into an actual bad guy. Don't make that man redeemable. Jesus F. Christ. And
I think you mean John F. Walker.
Jeebus Crisp. Yeah. That's like, to me, that was the clear narrative, is this like overbearing, over violent, I'm right and no one else because I have the flag, is the bad guy. But things got so muddled with those Flag Smashers that we never really got a clear villain in all of this.
Yeah. Like have Sam you know, Steve's whole thing was he was introduced, he punched Hitler in the face in the comics. And like they even incorporated that into the first Avenger. They did it via the montage or whatever. Like punching Captain America in the face and saying this is what American liberal democracy is kind of Captain America's shtick. So yes, have him actually punch the blonde, blue-eyed, I'm Captain America strangling and suffocating a black man in a factory, like, villain of the piece. And that's it. Like, I think I mentioned this last week, which is like, I feel like there's no reason why Sam can't like do what Steve did, which is defeat fascists. I feel like it's a very strange choice to have Sam's first opponents be like what Fox News thinks Antifa are, you know? Like, and like, I think I joked in the first episode that it feels very much like this is just the show saying to your granddad, look, we know that this isn't your Captain America, but we want you to know we're not going too far with it. Just so you know, we're not going too far with it. That's very much what the Flag Smashers as villains really felt like to me. It's like, okay, we don't want you to think we're going kind of full cuckoo bananas on this. It's, you know, it's, yeah.
No, that's a good point. That's partly why I guess I never really, like, even after they kept showing them killing people for no reason, like I never really kind of painted them as like bad guys. Like it just never rang true to me, which is why like I felt so kind of cheated by Carly's eventual, arc finishing up. But I'd probably cut the Flag Smashers, like Jack is mentioning. I'd also cut Sharon Carter, though that wouldn't save any time whatsoever because she's barely in the show.
Can I just say I'm really glad that none of you have cut Zemo. Even though Zemo goes absolutely nowhere and does absolutely nothing, I am so glad that both of you are on Team Zemo here.
He's great.
We need Zemo.
Add more Zemo. Bring him to the boat.
Zemo, the boat, and the Winter Soldier is there.
Bring Zemo to the boat. Hashtag bring Zemo to the boat. Absolutely. Well, no, and that's how you would do that. If you get rid of the Flag Smashers, they, there's some, or, like the Flag Smashers are like the inciting incident who turn out just to be a bunch of kids and they're not really causing any problems. Zemo actually is the bad guy who gets the serum to John Walker, who turns into the main villain. That's the story. Zemo's the villain, John Walker's the villain. You still get to have all your Zemo scenes. Flag Smashers, oh wait, these are just a bunch of kids trying to help. Oh, I'll set them straight. I'm Captain America. Punching John Walker. Boom. I've fixed your show.
So you would be happy with Zemo.
It was Zemo all along.
Villain.
Yeah, it was Zemo all along.
Yeah, because I thought you were kind of dreading that kind of a turn.
I was dreading that. I was certainly dreading that.
And like in the context of Falcon Winter Soldier, which is a schlocky action movie, that's okay because you want a clear villain. Like you want a big villain. In rewatching like Winter Soldier and Civil War, like having Winter Soldier specifically, I suppose, like having that point in which it's like, oh, it's Hydra. We get to punch all the Hydra people. We're good punching all the Hydra people. It's a cathartic moment because it's a schlocky action movie and you just want to see Captain America punch bad guys who are actually bad guys. I could.
Yeah. I mean, you don't think that Winter Soldier would have been better if Steve just like stopped, called Alexander Pierce or Robert Redford over, gave him a stern lecture in front of the video cameras, and counted on him to do the right thing at the end? You don't think that The Winter Soldier would have been a better movie if that happened? Sorry.
You've done a great job. You've done a great job illustrating the overall problems with Falcon Winter Soldier, which obviously I'm being a little harsh on.
No, I know.
The other part of my disappointment with Falcon Winter Soldier, and part of the reason why I will always defend Winter Soldier and Civil War, even though, yes, the themes get a little muddled, is because the action is good enough where you don't care. And I think that's what I'm looking for in these movies. I like action movies and I like sci-fi movies, which is why I like superhero movies. They're just action sci-fi movies. And the action sequences in both Winter Soldier and Civil War are fun and spectacular and super engaging. And so, like, if the politics or the who's right and who's wrong gets a little muddled, who cares about that? I get to see people punch other people. And Falcon Winter Soldier started off really strong in the action area and piddled down a spiral.
Yeah. No, the opening action sequence is amazing. It's one of my favorite sequences in the MCU because it's that 80s schlocky action movie. He's just picking people up and throwing them against walls and blowing up helicopters because, again, it's an 80s action movie. You're not meant to think about the complexity of this. You're not meant to think about the fact that these are real people or people who have like bones in their body. You're just meant to go, whoa, look at him blow things up. Like it's like, and I think it's glorious. And again, I think I talked about this last week. Like one of the big problems with the finale of it is that it's set in New York City at night, and I think it was shot in Atlanta. It's not even actually shot in New York because of course it isn't, because of tax reasons. But things like the fact that you have him wearing this gaudy bright kind of red, blue and white costume, but you're shooting it at night and it's dark and you're using other light sources. I honestly think, again, if you had done a sequence like the opening sequence where it's bright, it's colorful, I honestly think that his uniform would have looked much, much better. Like, I think if you swapped the big opening and closing sequences or swapped the uniforms, that would have been much more satisfying. Not
only is it bright and colorful, which is huge points, but his main mission in the first action sequence was rescuing someone, like a very heroic thing, where his main mission in the last one was Maybe punch some people, maybe stop some people who may be good or bad, or I don't know, they're kidnapping people maybe, and that's good or bad. Like, like wibbly, it's all wibbly wobbly. I gotta rescue the president's daughter. Swoom! Right?
Yeah, we will do that Iron Man 3 episode at some point.
Hell yeah.
So, I mean, do you think in a Captain America 4 with Sam Wilson as the star, a non-superpowered individual, do you think some of the action sequences will then suffer as a result? Because as we've noted multiple times before, Sam Wilson can't fight. So is Captain America 4 going to open with another training montage where he's like taking lessons from somebody?
Actually, Casey, I laughed out loud when I was rewatching Winter Soldier, and like one of Sam's first fights is against Crossbones, Remlo, which he loses.
Yep, he's getting thrown around, and then a building falls.
I'm watching that, thinking
he's able to run away because he has wings.
It's consistency, I mean, that's a consistent character.
I'm going Sam loses all the time. I think when they have the full Marvel machine behind them, when they have all of their regular stunt coordinators and stunt cinematographers and the full big budget of a real big movie, I think Sam will finally win a fight.
But will it be against Batroc? That's the question. I just want Batroc showing up and considering himself to be Sam's arch nemesis to be a recurring motif. He just shows up, he gives a big speech, Sam fights him, the result is inconclusive, and then Sam goes off and does whatever the rest of the movie is. Which
I'd forgot when we had the actual discussion in the finale, but I think he dies in that episode, right? Like, doesn't he get shot and like they just leave his body in the warehouse? I don't know if they ever really
he does.
confirm.
No, he does, because he figures out that she's the power broker and is going to try and blackmail her.
She shoots him, but like no one like checks his pulse or anything. He just kind of like dies off in like a dark corner.
Yeah. So he can come back. Yeah, he can come back. Like that. That would be a really.
Are you
fun
saying
opening.
he could leap back to life?
He could leap right back into life. That would be a really fun opening for Captain America 4. Batroc shows up like, I will find, like, and he has like prosthetic legs like for extra leaping abilities, and it's like,
that would explain it. Like she shot him in the gut, went through his like spinal cord. Now. He got some.
Now he's the leaper, so he can like leap from building to building. So Sam has to do cool flying stuff, and he gives a big speech, and Sam's like, "Dude, I've met you like twice. This isn't a thing. Oh, I will abuse you." And then Sam just punches and finally wins the fight. That would be great. I want that.
It's great because I'm now imagining like the post like final episode sequence that's like Silence of the Lambs, where they've loaded Batroc into an ambulance and are driving it off, and then all of a sudden he just sits up behind the attendee, and you cut to outside the ambulance and it just bounces because you can tell there's a lot of leaping going on inside.
Poor Batroc. Poor Batroc. He just jumps really well. Oh, I love him.
There's another loose end as well that I don't think we mentioned much of. Like, Carly and the rest of the Flag Smashers are all dead, presumably, right? Like, most of them were blown up in that cart. But the one that Sam dropped into the Hudson River isn't. Like, that guy specifically tells him, like, hey, we got one Flag Smasher just hanging out in the water. You mind picking him up? And Sam's like, cool, got it. And then, like, that's the end of that. But, like, what happened to that guy? Because he wasn't in the car with the others who Zemo murdered. And Zemo, for all intents and purposes, believes he's murdered all the Flag Smashers, right? So who was this random ace helicopter pilot, mind you, who is
a really
still
good
a super
helicopter
soldier.
pilot.
Still a super soldier, kind of unaccounted for.
Oh my God, is he Sam's new arch nemesis? Again, helicopter pilot. What have we learned from this TV show if that like Sam's arch nemesis must have mastery of helicopters?
Yes. And he's gonna like was there like a really old like golden age villain who just had like a propeller beanie? and it was just like Inspector Gadgeting, like
okay, that's much better than my idea, which was it was going to be powered by blowing. So it's just like with his super soldier lungs.
Oh God.
Sorry, we should be more serious.
No, I think we can presume that Sam picked him up, dropped him in the car, and he was blown up, or it doesn't matter because
that happened after, didn't it?
Also, part of me's like, I remember watching that and being
not.
slightly. I remember watching that and being slightly like disappointed we didn't get a proper reaction from Sam, because like Sam's whole big thing was Carly's dead. you guys should feel ashamed. Look at all these people who have died. Thank God nobody else died tonight. It was a miracle that nobody else died here tonight. And then all of like the guys who Sam has just spent talking about how they're mistaken and they're young and they're well-intentioned get loaded into a van and blown up by Zemo's Alfred. And you never get a sense that like Sam has even given this a second thought. Like, Sam just walks off. He's just like, yep, being Captain America. This is what I'm doing.
He
it's
didn't have a radio on, so there's no way he could have known.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah.
No, but he's following.
But like the morning after is the thing. Like, it's like, oh crap. It's like
he's falling into the same trappings of the old Avengers, which is, well, I've fixed it. Never will look into this again. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
No,
not my problem.
I think these super soldiers, if there are any of them around, this is going to be very similar to the Extremis super soldiers that we got in Iron Man 3, the best Marvel movie, where like they had all of these super soldiers and they were never mentioned again outside of a couple Shield episodes, Agents of Shield episodes, because that's how that works.
And this is an interesting point. This gets me to something that I wanted to talk about because, first of all, KC was right. We had a conversation. We talked about like what the future of this was going to be, and KC said that he was looking forward to seeing Sam in Captain America 4. And I, very arrogantly and very much like, well, I've read Bob Chapek and Bob Iger's statements, so I can definitely say what Disney are planning. I'm like, no. They're now in streaming. That's what they're doing. That's the priority for the company. And then what happens less than 12 hours after the finale of like Falcon Winter Soldier? They're like, nope, Captain America 4. And this is what I want to talk about. What does this mean about the relationship between these streaming services and movies and the future of the MCU, right? Because we had assumed, and again, we hadn't assumed it was going to happen immediately, but we'd assumed it was going to happen, that the future of the MCU was going to be on streaming because that's where Disney wanted to build its subscriber base. And obviously, if you've got millions of people paying $8 a month, 12 months a year, presumably for however long they'll stay, I think the average lifetime is about 8 years for Netflix, then, you know, that's a steady income stream and it's better than having them go to the cinema once a year to watch Endgame. That's a much sounder investment. And so the idea was that, you know, after Endgame, because Endgame was literally the biggest movie of all time, there's no way to follow that in cinemas. So you'll get this splattering of cinematic movies that are going to feature lesser known Avengers and kind of continuing franchises. So stuff like the Eternals and Shang-Chi, and, you know, you'll get Captain Marvel 2 and you'll get like Black Panther 2, and they'll both make $1 billion. But the idea was like the Iron Man line is going to like Disney Plus with like Ironheart and with War Machine. Things like Captain America is going there with Falcon and Winter Soldier. But it looks like after watching WandaVision and watching how WandaVision ties into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and watching how this clearly was designed or intended to go into Captain America 4, and the way in which it's structured so that, like, if you don't have Disney Plus, and a lot of people won't have Disney Plus, the membership of Disney Plus is about 90 million people. Not all of those people are there for Marvel. I think Nielsen estimated that, like, the average viewership of WandaVision was about 6 million people, which is tiny, which is big. It's like massive for television, but it's tiny when you compare it to the people who have watched Endgame, which I think like tickets range somewhere in the 200 million mark, right? So you have got Captain America 4. It's going to star Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson. You are hopefully going to be selling it to more than, say, the 6 million people who watched Falcon Winter Soldier. Rough estimate. Maybe it was 12, maybe it was 15, maybe it was 20. We don't know. It's all a dark art. But let's say yeah, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey sort of stuff. But like, I think but even if everybody who has Disney Plus watches Falcon Winter Soldier, that is still fewer people than watch Endgame, and it's still fewer people than watch, say, Civil War or whatever, right?
Right. So what's the purpose of the streaming versus the movie? Right.
That's it exactly. So, and the way in which this is structured, because you have an Endgame, Steve shows up with the shield at the end. He gives the shield to Sam. He says, "You're Captain America now." Sam says, "I don't really want to be Captain America." And Steve says, "You're Captain America." Then you have this show that happens, and you have Captain America 4, and you go from Endgame to Captain America 4. Sam is Captain America now. Does the show mean anything? And I mean, I think the journey is worth taking of itself, but do we think that it was designed in such a way, with a priority being audiences going from Endgame to Captain America 4 without having to watch this? Is this basically a value-added media? Is this a bonus feature, or is this a trailer? That's what I'm asking.
No, I'm very much of the opinion that it's kind of just a bonus. Like, subscribe to Disney Plus and you get extra Marvel content, not the essential Marvel content that are the movies, which everyone will have access to outside of a streaming service. So like I do think if this show never existed, they wouldn't have to change all that much about the new show. But because it does exist, the stuff that's going to be in that new movie will have references to the show that only people who watch the show will get or connect the dots to, right? Because otherwise, it would just be the same situation where this character shows up and then everybody goes to Google and says, "Who the hell is that?" Because that's what we did throughout the show anyway in all the other movies.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, and I think what they are creating here is a cyclical relationship. Before, like for the first run of the MCU, or for literally any comic book movie, what you are hoping for is your core base of comic book fans, which there aren't many of in general. Like, you know, people who read comics regularly. Not the largest audience in the world, never was. By the way, comic book fans, we never were. But we are a loud and passionate base. So what if you could get your base without the comic books? That's where we have the streaming service. Those of us who really love the movies will have the streaming service. We're going to watch this. We're going to be the base. We're going to be ravenous when the new movie comes out, which will help feed the buzz for the new movie, which will help feed the buzz for the next show, which will, you know, so on and so forth. And so this is a relationship that they're trying to cultivate where you can have both or neither or one of the other. And I think it's a good relationship to have because it means that they can test things out in small scale, a lot like what they're doing with comic books now. You know, we get to have these like if you look at Falcon Winter
Sam
Soldier,
originated the role of Captain America in the comics. Like that was the trial. Like it's the intellectual property farm. Nick Spencer and Rick Remender came up with the idea of what if Sam was Captain America? And Marvel Studios said, "Yep, let's try it."
Yeah, let's try it out, and it did well, and so they brought it over to the movie. That's its purpose. So, what if now they say, "Well, we are wondering if we can get away with having a charismatic villain team. What if we have a couple of episodes with Zemo in this show just as a trial run? He's not really integral to the plot. We're just going to see how people like him. Guess what? That motherfucker was memed to hell and back. He's getting his own show. That was the test right there. And that's going to test him for his show or his movie. They're going to test Sam in small scale to see if he can make his movie. People liked him. Make a movie. Like, it's all part of the farm where it's a farm that makes money to make more money. That's how
it's a money farm. It's a money tree.
It's a money farm that farms money. It's crazy.
Yeah, the good old intellectual property farm.
Does money also work on this farm?
Does money work on the farm? Right?
You gotta invest it. You gotta plant it. It's like it's an entire.
You use money to make the money, and the farm also you rent tickets to the farm. Oh fuck! It's all gone.
But I like that in no way is any of this art. It's just like, no, it's just there's a constant funnel of money. You throw your money in and you get more money out. What do you want in the middle?
This is Disney we're talking about. They gave up on art a long time ago. They bought their artists. They don't make art anymore.
I mean, but that being said, like they haven't been doing a bad job. Like that's weirdly enough, like this probably isn't the most revolutionary TV or movies on the planet or whatnot, right? But like they're all still generally good or on the good side, right?
Yeah.
Even the worst ones are still like passable in terms of just being entertaining.
Exactly.
But I do worry. We do have all these, like we got like what 20-something movies now in the cinematic universe. Several shows now being announced on top of the shows that already existed that are now falling in and out of canon. It's like, okay, there's a lot of this content now. Will we at some point reach a point of saturation? Like, will they start kind of galvanizing their own audience by giving them too much of the supposed good thing? Are we reaching a close point? 'Cause right now it seems like people are still very much into all this. Like, I don't really see like anything slowing down at the moment.
That's the question that has been brought up since Iron Man 2. Like since
literally the third movie in the franchise.
People have been talking about oversaturation of the comic book market since the third Marvel Cinematic Universe movie.
And one of them was Incredible Hulk.
Right, which we all agree to forget about and only talk about in passing. Right. And so it's a very good question. This is why it's also cyclical, because the saturation point for me is much higher than it is for the general audience, right? So the general audience isn't going to watch all these shows. They don't care about all these shows. That's why they don't put as much money into the shows. I do, so I give them extra money. And it's a way of having their cake and eating it too. So the general audience just gets the movies. Those of us who pay more, we get more. And it feeds.
I think that's exactly it, actually. Well, again, because that's it. Is that, like, everybody's been talking about superhero saturation. I don't think we're there yet. I mean, like, again, Invincible finished its first season on Amazon today, and it's well worth checking out. Jupiter's Legacy will be coming to Netflix, I think, on Friday as well. We are nowhere near kind of played out in terms of superhero stuff. Not even close. 4 hours of Zack Snyder's Justice League couldn't do it. There's no chance that this is going to play out. But I do think there is something very interesting and canny in Marvel's strategy. And I mean, and to be fair, we're talking about the strategy in the business. We'll come back to the art in a second, because I think KC raised a good point there is worth coming back to. But I think that, like, one of these smart things that Marvel have done is they've looked at the success of, like, Infinity War and Endgame. Like, literally the biggest movie in the history of cinema until Avatar was re-released, those cheating bastards. But you know what I mean? It was like, how do you follow that? And their solution was to basically say, well, we're not going to go bigger for a while. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to continue to put content out there. So people who are jonesing for Marvel content in their lives, and, you know, myself, Jack, and Casey are probably among those, the people who need that hit of Marvel to get them going in the morning, we can continue to tune in and pay attention to it. We're like, yeah, the Eternals, the comic book that, like, Jack Kirby created when he came back to Marvel. Yep, sure, give me that movie. Whereas, you know, my parents are like, what the fuck's an Eternal? Like, what the hell is going on here?
Right?
Who is Shang-Chi? Why do I care about this? So that, like, and then, you know, on Disney Plus, you have, like, okay, well, it's the next generation of Iron Man, the next generation of Captain America. But again, not big, not bombastic, not blockbuster events of themselves. So that you let the ground go fallow. So people who are primarily there to buy tickets for the big ticket MCU icons. So things like Black Panther 2. Things like Captain Marvel 2. Things like whatever the next Avengers is going to be. And I'm really hoping that it turns out to be like Al Ewing's Ultimates, because that is a great run of comics, and it also focuses on Black Panther and Captain Marvel, so it would seem to be a logical thing to adapt if that's what you're doing. Marvel, you don't have to hire me to come up with subtitles for Captain America 4, even if I think Stars and Stripes Forever is right there for you. But you can take that as a freebie.
No, boo boo.
That's like Fast and Furious territory.
Come on.
Which that works for Fast and Furious. That does not work. We tried that already with Fant 4 Stick.
I was about to say, Captain for America. That's what I want. For Captain
Boo,
for America.
Darren.
No. Okay. Anyway, but like that's what I think they're doing, and I think it's a very good strategy. Is they're basically creating a universe where people who are there for the big ticket items now have those spaced apart, so they don't feel like homework. It doesn't feel like a chore. It doesn't feel like, man, I really have to watch, you know, like the Eternals or Shang-Chi in order to go and see the next Avengers movie or to go and see the next Captain America movie. I don't have to have Disney Plus to watch 6 hours of WandaVision or watch 6 hours of Captain America. But if I do, and I am willing to give them money for it, because everyone likes money, they will accept my money and give me more content. I think it's an interesting strategy. But to bring it back to what KC said, and I think like this is a good point to kind of circle back around to in terms of talking about the show. Like, I think we've been fairly balanced on it. Like, I think, to be honest, I think we've been very even-handed in it. We liked lots of it. We disliked certain other parts of it. We praised it when it deserved praise, and we criticized it when it deserved criticism. But I do think, and we've said this repeatedly, and it's probably a good note to close on or wrap up on, but I was impressed at how far the show went. At the same time, I think there were moments where it pulled its punches. There were moments where it compromised. There were moments where it said, where it reached across the aisle to people who were never going to accept the hand that it was offering. Like, the redemption of John Walker is very clearly the show saying, look, we're not going too far with this whole, you know, criticizing of American identity or kind of like the legacy of racism or white privilege in America. We're not going to make him a villain. See, we're not being too radical or crazy or anything like that. And putting the hand out and saying, come on, get on board with us. We'll welcome you on. And of course, you can just look at the internet and see how that went down. But I do think the show deserves credit for, like, actually going as far as it does. Things like the character of Isaiah Bradley, it deserves absolute credit for. Things like letting Sam acknowledge, like, the way in which he's been treated and the way in which, like, the factors in his decision to be Captain America are fundamentally different than they would be for Steve or they would be for Bucky. Mm-hmm. I think actually going there and having those conversations, and, you know, I don't think it's radical. I don't think it goes far. I think there are plenty of shows that go further. I think there are plenty of movies that have gone further. But I think that for something this populist, this accessible, this mainstream, with this large an audience, like, the people watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier aren't going to be the people watching Watchmen on HBO. I think this goes very far, and I think it deserves a great deal of credit for that. That's kind of what I would say.
Agreed. Like Sam's hesitation to step up to the plate or whatnot, or his hero's journey, as it's called, right, was about him being black, which is like, that's crazy that Disney decided to focus on that. Like, that was the point. I found it kind of funny that if you knew, you knew. Like, everybody knew that that's what it was. And Disney played coy with it for, like, the first 2 episodes or so. But then it pretty much was like, hey, the reason Sam is hesitant to do this is because he's black. And, like, I do commend them for that, because, like, that's what was in everybody's head. And they, you know, they were good at that. We learned from WandaVision, kind of reading what their audience would think of their plot and then using it against them. Mm-hmm. But this was an instance where they didn't use it as, like, ammo to subvert you. They instead told you the story that you felt like they would be too scared to tell. So, like, that's why I legit commend them for that. And yes, they did kind of take their foot off the gas for, like, certain aspects, like with the flag smashes with John Walker and etc. So yeah, like, again, that's why I still kind of have, like, a middling response to it, though I did enjoy it, and I do commend them for, like, how far they did go. Like, overall, it's still kind of average.
Yeah,
right. But I mean,
it's very much extremes. It's a game of extremes, you know? Yeah.
Like, huge disappointments and, like, huge accolades kind of just balance out into kind of this middle ground, weirdly enough.
Yeah. Which is good. Like, I mean, and that's not normally how the MCU works, because I think, as Casey pointed out, like, the MCU is a well-oiled machine, and it typically tends to give you something that is, like, consistently good. You know? I mean, like, there are great movies there. I think, like, we singled out Iron Man 3. I think Thor Ragnarok is a stunning piece of cinema. I think, like, Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 are also great. But generally speaking, it averages out. It's about pretty good. It's like, I'm satisfied with that. It gave me what I wanted. And I think there's something to be said for the weird extremity of, like, this TV show that we watched, where parts of it were like, wow, this is even more than I dared hope for from this. And other parts of it are like, well, this is the worst decision I could imagine them making with this character at this moment in time. And, like, the way in which it's not flat. It is that cave. It's that bell curve, basically. It's I think that's something that I liked about it, because it felt like it was taking chances. It felt like it was taking risks in a way that these projects don't always do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I think that's a great note to end on. Like, overall, it's fine. It's overall, it's enjoyable. What I will say, kind of echoing what I said in the beginning, is binging it definitely helps even everything out. And it was a bit more enjoyable experience because, yeah, you can just forget about the boring stuff and let the good stuff carry you through. So yeah, it's a great way to end. Great. Thanks everybody for watching and or listening to this. Once again, I've been Jack Packard.
I'm Darren Mooney.
I've been KC Wosu.
And thanks for being here.